So we look across here. On the left, it's the team of Ayers-Musser-Soorani, Dan Musser, and Daryl Ayers. And I'm glad that even though we're playing Standard, that Shaheen is now playing Esper Control again. I was worried when 3 weeks ago I saw him play Black-Green. I'm far more comfortable seeing those words next to his name.
Right, this just makes way more sense. Had a little bit more time to find it.
Now, I'd expect a control mirror as he's playing against Jim Davis, but Jim's on green-black aggro.
Yeah, he tried blue-black control. Didn't work out.
All right. Daryl on a 6-card hand. We start out with Max Tietze, and he can play an unfair game of his own. We see Mox Diamond, Grove of the Burnwillows, Liliana of the Veil. Yeah, Legacy's a great format. 3 mana spells on turn 1.
If his last card's Life from the Loam, he's really off to the races.
Yeah, now empty-handed.
Both players discard Punishing Fire.
Well, Max has Grove. The thing is that a card like Liliana of the Veil is not actually that good against lands.
No, they're planning on putting lands in their graveyard and casting Life from the Loam a bunch as it is.
Yeah. So now Daryl's going to reply. Max empty-handed on turn 1.
Also, with both players having access to Punishing Grove, Ayers just matter more. Well, Max might present a Dark Confidant that actually dies to that.
Ayers doesn't actually have the Grove of the Burnwillows yet.
Right. Just the inclusions in the deck. The Punishing Fire just matters way more for Ayers.
And Ayers does have a copy of Exploration, so plays a 2nd land. It's a copy of Wasteland. But he opts, interestingly, not to blow up the Grove of the Burnwillows.
Trying to set up some mana, it looks like. You know, Tietze is empty-handed there.
Yeah, I guess Daryl is at a mana disadvantage right now.
And currently he has access to 2 mana of any combination of colors that he desires just off of those Moxen. Sometimes activating Wasteland feels like strip mining yourself, and then this looks like kind of one of those situations.
Max is going to start getting back Punishing Fire. Plus Liliana. I think Punishing Fire is going back into the graveyard.
Combo!
Daryl discards a 2nd Punishing Fire of his own. But look at this draw for Max. It's a copy of Life from the Loam, and that may have been the best draw he could have found.
Yes, that is a very significant pickup. He'll be able to start going to town with that. He had the cycling land with the Baron Moor as well.
Well, we were wondering whether or not there would have been, Daryl could Wasteland him out, but certainly can't now. Daryl has another plan, though. His next 2 lands are Thespian Stage Dark Depths.
And you see why he hung on to the Wasteland here.
This makes a lot more sense.
He's going to have to do this at the end of Tietze's turn so that he doesn't get edicted by the Liliana, but it shouldn't be too hard to convert a 20/20 into a victory from here.
Well, yeah, so he can make a 20/20 on Max's end step, and Max is at 20.
So Max is going to want to try to find a Wasteland here to force the action during Max's main phase. And that's about all that he can do from here.
Max will cycle Baron Moor. It's one of the cycling lands he has.
I believe Max also does have a Maze of Ith in his deck as well, so he could produce that. And a Caracas. So he has some outs.
All right, here's one. Max dredged Life from the Loam and got Wasteland into the graveyard.
Okay, that's something.
Right, so that actually in conjunction with Liliana answers the 20/20.
Yeah, you activate the Wasteland, force Ayers to do the Thespian Stage thing, make the 20/20, and then you just edict the Liliana.
Yeah, there's this intervening if on Dark Depths, which Wasteland is a good answer to. So Max is going to start by casting Life from the Loam. He can get back his cycling land and that Wasteland. And yeah, so the question is, does he could, I guess, just fire off the Wasteland right now.
Yeah, he could also just sit on it, and that way Ayers just can't go for the Thespian Stage.
Well, that would be dangerous, because if Daryl end step...
He could set up to do it twice or something like that.
Yeah, he could waste the Wasteland. And Max is going to play his Wasteland and immediately go after one of Daryl's lands.
Yep.
It's going to be Thespian Stage. And so now if Daryl makes a 20/20 in response, well, that's no good, because then Max will just -2 the Lily.
Yep.
1 card in Ayers' hand. Wasteland on the stack. He's looking to take care of Thespian Stage.
Ayers really needs to set up a Life from the Loam of his own from here.
Right. And then the game gets very interesting when both players start loaming. I guess Daryl can loam better.
Yes, Exploration already on the battlefield. Ayers does have access to 4 copies of Gamble in his deck, as well as 4 Life from the Loam, so that's how he finds that.
Ayers is going to cast Crop Rotation, sacrificing his Thespian stage. Got kind of a toolbox here. We'll see what he wants to go for.
So this is actually pretty sweet. He's looking at Grove of the Burnwillows here. He'll then be able to start rebuying his Punishing Fire and use that to contain the Liliana of the Veil.
Well, for a little bit, right? Max has Loam Wasteland going, so that
basically,
would work for a
if
turn
he can't produce Life from the Loam, he's out of this game anyway.
Yeah, Max will just get all his lands one at a time.
Right, and Max has already demonstrated Life from the Loam Wasteland, so he can't really go for his combo to begin with.
What I like from Max's situation is he's going to get this online quickly. He has the cycling land as well, so it's not just he can start loaming multiple times. But Max is still limited to only playing 1 land per turn. That's the part he can't get by.
Right.
You see he draws a card off Baron Moore. Draws Maze of Ith. That could certainly help.
Well, that makes Ayers' job that much harder.
Pass. Daryl will buy back one of those Punishing Fires. He could really use a Life from the Loam right here. Or a Gamble. It looks like he hit Gamble, Ryan.
That's a good one.
That's perfect. First result in, Daryl's teammate Ayers-Musser-Soorani over in Standard. Now that he's on Esper control, he's pretty much unbeatable. Takes game 1 over Jim Davis.
Yeah, that's how that works.
That's not even a deck in Standard. Max's teammates will counter. Actually, correction here on the scoreboard. Daryl's teammates doing plenty of work. We're going to correct that one. Dan Musser actually with Scape Shift getting game 1.
And Ayers picked up the Gamble, has Life from the Loam in his graveyard now. Now he can really start doing some work.
Yeah, and thanks to the fact that he crop rotated for that Grove of the Burnwillows, his double green will stop Max from knocking Daryl off of green mana here. Right? Otherwise, there'd be the worry that Max keeps him off green and suddenly he can't cast the Loam.
Right.
But so Max has been ahead this whole game, Ryan, but we're going to get to this point where we're going to see who can maybe like loam harder, and because Daryl has that exploration, he should be favored here.
You can just do twice as much.
Yeah, Max plays 1 wasteland per turn, well, Daryl will play 2.
Yes. And Daryl can start using these wastelands to really turn off Tietze's ability to generate any kind of mana.
I want to say as long as this exploration stays on the table, Max can't win this fight, but what can he maybe draw to ways to get rid of exploration?
He has 3 Abrupt Decays in his deck. A Maelstrom Pulse as well.
So there's a chance.
When he's dredging Loam, obviously he can't draw any of these.
Yeah, he's gotten up to a 5-card hand now. Cast Loam this turn and got a full 3 off it. Maze of Ith and Wasteland and Baron Moore. I mean, he's doing a lot. Cycles Baron Moore. Chalice of the Void was the pickup. I have a weird idea here. If Max chalices for 2, who's hurt? Like, who does that mess up?
Yeah, I mean, Tietze just has more materials currently.
Okay, so if he can just stall the game out for this chalice, maybe it's fine?
Yeah, he already has more cards in hand. He has Liliana on the battlefield.
Kind of like that. Plays Wasteland, discards Punishing Fire. Passes. Daryl, here we go to dredging. Loam gets back Thespian Stage, Rishadan Port, and Basic Forest. And on 2 mana, Daryl will start by casting Loam. Getting back that Thespian Stage and another Thespian Stage and a Wooded Foothills. He'll play Stage Foothills and pass. So I guess Max's line here then is to get rid of the Dark Depths if he can, and then try to like chalice on 2, or so he needs to stop this.
Then he has the materials he needs already on the battlefield to accomplish this. He has 4 mana sources plus a wasteland on the battlefield.
Will Max dredge then? We go back to his untap. The answer is no. It looks like he's going to draw off the top of the deck. Now, if he finds something like Abrupt Decay, that could serve him really well. Picks up just a land off the top. So Max will put Liliana up to 6. This now puts her in range of ultimating. Daryl has to discard the last card in his hand. And now Chalice of the Void on 2 from Max Tietze. And Daryl is at the ready by cracking a fetch land. Getting Taiga here. But Chalice on 2 is very good against lands in the main deck. Daryl does not have any ways in the main to destroy an artifact. This will just stand.
And now he won't be able to use Punishing Fire to take down that Liliana.
The last piece of the puzzle seems to be that Max has to blow up part of this Dark Depths combo that's on the board. So play Verdant Catacombs and pass. Chalice on 2. Daryl corrects him. He already had played a land. This will be interesting to see. How does Ayers work his way through this? His life from the Loams and Punishing Fires, both of their Loams and Punishing Fires are gone now for the game.
The rest of the spells in his deck don't really accomplish anything.
Stands up here, Daryl tapping 3. This is for Thespian Stage. We might still have this Chalice of the Void on the stack. Yeah, he's going to go ahead and use the Punishing Fire to shoot Liliana with that on the stack. Then Chalice resolves.
Yep. At least buys him some time against the
Verdant Catacombs for Max. Okay, so Daryl was holding him on that spell.
The second Thespian Stage would allow him to go for Dark Depths twice, but the Liliana is still on the battlefield.
Yeah, well, he'd have to do it on end step. But Daryl can sneak one on the end step here, I think. If he's not careful, right?
Oh, Tietze still has the Wasteland up.
If on Max's end step, Daryl wastes Max's Wasteland.
Sure.
That would work,
yeah,
right?
if Tietze doesn't go for the Wasteland here.
Right. And it looks like he doesn't. Max should have the upper hand here, but he's got to play it right. I guess Max does have Mazavith still in his hand, so maybe none of this matters.
Yeah, he has a few ways to cover this at this point. And a Dryad Arbor, got a win condition online.
I don't know, Daryl could copy it. Actually, yeah, if Daryl has a second Thespian Stage, he could, insulate himself against Liliana. Max will get the Punishing Fire back into his hand with Girl with the Burn Willows, discard it to Liliana. Daryl gets rid of a Mox Diamond. Caracas. Okay. Well, that's going to make things tougher.
Not that they were easy to begin with.
Thespian Stage is going to copy Wasteland for Daryl. Or it's going to try to. And that works. So Daryl now owning 2 Wastelands. Got to race his way into. Once this Liliana ultimates, it's going to get even harder for Daryl. And now Max, he's shoring this up.
And at some point, Ayers has to start concerning himself with the round clock. He has a deck that can certainly win fast games. Outside of the combo, though, and he's playing against a Wasteland Caracas Mazavith deck.
Sure.
The lands can take a long time to close a game.
Another Chalice of the Void picked up from Max. No good way for him to cast that. The only other number you'd want against lands is 1, but you can't make a Chalice for 1 when there's already 1 for 2 in play. So that one will be a dead draw.
Yeah, there's no ones that really matter, though, so it's fine.
The discard Punishing Fire again. Continues to work that Liliana up to 6 or maybe 7. Just gonna try to kill him with a Dryad Arbor. Another Dark Depths for Daryl. That is a legendary land. You know, Ryan, Daryl could have started thawing that Dark Depths on the end step there. You know, I don't think that's a real plan. And yet Daryl doesn't either. He's done this enough to know when to concede for clock, and that's what he'll do. Max Tietze with Punishing Abzan gets the first game.
Yeah, the writing was more or less on the wall when the Chalice on 2 was established with the Wasteland.
And Max had to do that right when he did. I think with one more turn, Daryl may have gotten too far ahead. We even saw the one turn where Daryl resolved Loam, and he made so much progress just in one rotation of it.
Right. And that is the advantage that you do see from the Punishing Abzan deck in this matchup is it's not as far off the deep end, so it can do things like Chalice on 2 and turn off its game plan because that's going to end up hurting Ayers more than it hurts Tietze. So that was the advantage that you saw him press there.
So across the board, though, we're looking at all the matches now entering game number 2. Daryl did not take his first game, but his 2 teammates have so far. We have Ayers-Musser-Soorani and Dan Musser both winning their first round.
Yeah, so you've played a lot more of these Valakut decks than I have, but when I look at the matchup of white-black tokens versus Scapeshift, I assume that Scapeshift is pretty good at closing against this deck and probably has access to enough sweepers to stop the tokens deck from being fast enough.
So black-white tokens is not a particularly fast deck. What it is good at doing is it's very good against removal spells. You know, cards like Lingering Souls or just a lot of cards that it presents are going to be strong here. Now, one of the issues is that Scapeshift is a deck that, I mean, it wins a lot with its lands, and it wins off the top of the deck a lot.
Yep.
So discard is only so good. What you'll happen is game 1 is generally pretty reasonable for Scapeshift, if not just good. And then post-board games, you'll expect the black-white tokens to sideboard some sort of extraction style effect. So like, you know, a Memoricide, a Surgical Extraction, something like that to shore up these matchups, and to just be like 15 discard spells deep or something really, you know, they'll have like Thought Seizes, Tide Hollow, Scullers, Inquisition of Kozilek's, and then like a Memoricide. And if depending on how much they have of that, they could win.
Sure, that makes sense.
But certainly I think that's, you know, Godless Shrine into Fetid Heath is something I would want to see if I'm playing a Valakut strategy.
Any combination of non-blue, non-colorless lands, I think you're generally fine with. As long as they're not combo killing you.
All right, so new on the SCG Tour this year is the Infinite Challenge Package. This is something we're actually running at every Open. So if you want to make it out for the Open weekend, but maybe the format of the main event is something that you can't make or can only run out for part of the tournament series, we now have an 8 different forms of Infinite Challenge. So these are challenge events all weekend long. We have them in Standard, we have them in Modern, we have them in Legacy. You can play them one at a time, or we now have our $80 2-day package, which includes entry to all the challenge events, and it's another way to get the 3 playmats. So you can take advantage of that side event schedule by getting the Infinite Challenge Package. Find out more at starcitygames.com/schedule, and that's available every weekend here in the 2017.
It's a lot of Magic for one great price.
So looking at the sideboards here, I want to start with Daryl's side. Chalice of the Void, Krosan Grip, Tireless Tracker. Those are all 4-ofs, pretty standard, and then they get 3 other cards.
Yep. The Bajuka Bog is generally going to be pretty good in this kind of matchup. Both players doing a lot of stuff with their graveyards. That makes sense. And you saw in game 1, the card that mattered was the Chalice of the Void. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Krosan Grip in some number coming in for Ayers as well.
Yeah, especially considering that game 1, he basically lost because of Chalice of the Void.
Right. And there's a consideration for Tracker. You know, this is a matchup that is on the grindy side, so having this value engine, yeah. Good chance that Tietze is leaving in some Punishing Fires for that one, though.
Looking at Max's sideboard, though, Daryl had better need these these Krosan Grips because Max actually has some pretty good cards here. 3 copies of Leyline of the Void are certain to be good in this matchup.
Yeah, Leyline of the Void is huge here. The rest of the sideboard, not a ton being offered here.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty common to not have a small number of cards that are good against lands because anything that interacts with creatures at all just doesn't play.
Golgari Charm to destroy Exploration isn't the worst idea I've ever heard.
No, I mean, I guess in that last game, the players were fighting a loam fight, and the only reason that it was a better fight for Daryl was because of the card exploration.
Yep.
Over in Modern, we talked about that black-white token scapeshift matchup. Dan getting game 1, not surprising to see Jason Imperiale even it out in the sideboard. Those games definitely do improve for him.
On the play with more discard spells, you can clean up pretty fast.
Now, mass discard can be really good against the scapeshift deck. It's very resilient, but a Thought Seize isn't particularly good against the deck.
It's so redundant.
But anything that's like a Mind Rot or anything just like a lot of Thought Seizes is really good.
And on the play, you're more likely to be able to effectively cast something like a Memoricide and actually end the game that way.
All right, so that one's going to 3. Meanwhile, up in Standard from Ayers-Musser-Soorani and Jim Davis. Shaheen still up a game as they battle in game number 2.
And they've been in game 2 for a minute here. Green-black aggro is a deck that can go kind of long, but the longer the game goes, I have to imagine Shaheen is gaining percentage points.
Can't say I disagree with that one.
These slower blue decks, they can run out of gas, and that happens in Standard more than really any other format. The card draw, Glimmer of Genius is very good. It's just not as strong as what's afforded in the other formats. So it's certainly not a foregone conclusion.
For a second time, Daryl Ayer is going to go down to 6. One thing about lands is the deck actually mulligans a lot, but because it's not really playing on the traditional access of cards, this can be fine for him.
It has a recursive Ancestral Recall. So when the deck is doing its thing, it more than makes up for a mulligan. And when it's not doing its thing, it is very well worth it to mulligan for that tool.
Max having kept on a 7 here.
If you are willing to cast Gamble, you are certainly willing to mulligan for the card you would gamble for.
As long as there's a loam in the hand, there's a lot we can do. You mentioned it. Very happy to see Shaheen, just looking at his list here, going back to doing Shaheen things. We have Gideons, Obnixilis, Sorin, all as one-ofs. We have some main deck Fumigates. So we got a bunch of Planeswalkers, some Sweepers. Exactly where he wants to be.
A Shaheen deck.
Yeah. Game number 2, Daryl has kept on 6. Starts on Thespian stage. Looks like he does have Mox Diamond. Maybe has some sort of see just what all he can do on the opening turn. Multiple copies of Punishing Fire won't help him much. And right now, it's just land go for Daryl.
The Punishing Fires, they certainly contribute to the hand because the best thing that Tietze can really be doing on turn 2 is casting Dark Confidant.
Yeah, that's certainly a play that in this matchup will get hit by Punishing Fire or Tabernacle or get disrupted more often than not.
If it works out, though, it's just such good value.
But what I've liked about Max's deck is that his own Mox Diamonds, much you said like an Agrolum deck, you see instead he's going to accelerate out into Liliana of the Veil again.
Yep, this is certainly a powerful card.
It's a power card. I mean, against, you see Daryl just discarding Mox Diamond to it. It generally lands as a deck that shouldn't care about this style of effect very much.
The Dare has yet to demonstrate that he has access to a Life from the Loam. We'll see if there's a gamble at end of turn here.
And yeah, and if Max gets this, it's going to be very interesting in that he didn't use a Leyline of the Void or a Chalice right now.
What he does have is double Punishing Fire to take care of the Liliana.
All right, and that's going to work. He did one on end step, and he can fire off another here main phase to get rid of the Planeswalker. That's exactly what Daryl's going to do. So Planeswalker's taken care of, plays Rishon Import. He passes. His last 2 cards look to be a land and a Tireless Tracker. So there's some hope here for Daryl.
Yeah.
Back over to Max Tietze. Fourth mana source, but just a pass from Max. And Daryl, a big one. He's going to pick up a gamble.
That'll help him set up Life from the Loam. No exploration as of yet in this game.
So here's going to cast Gamble, and I assume this is for Life from the Loam. Unfortunately for Daryl, he does not have any other green mana sources. So if he gets to keep the Loam, there's not much he can do with that.
Right.
His hand now appears to be Tireless Tracker, Life from the Loam, Mox Diamond. No matter which one Max takes, it doesn't really do anything for Daryl.
Yep.
And it'll be Mox Diamond. Pass. And we'll see what if he does something with Rishadan Port. He will. He'll get the Swamp for Max.
His lands were pretty interchangeable there.
Land and pass for Max. He's maybe flooding out a bit. Now, the good news for Max is that he does play Land on the Void, and he actually can cast it on top of just having it in his opener.
Right.
He'll need to do so soon, though. From Daryl, Life from the Loam gets back Wooded Foothills.
You're only getting one land back. It's not ideal. But he's starting to get his engine going.
Yeah, a second Rishadan Port for the turn. Next turn, Daryl will be able to play Tireless Tracker and use a fetch land. Tracker, fetch land, make 2 clues, cast Loam. It's like, oh, I'd accept that. That seems like a fine sequence.
That's a reasonable turn. Uh-oh.
Well, Max will wasteland Daryl off of green mana here. And then cast a Loam of his own. So now we're getting into Life from the Loam fights. And actually, because Daryl doesn't have any way to break this up. Like, he doesn't have the exploration.
Max is ahead on lands, and neither player has exploration. Ayers just on only colorless sources at this point in time as well, that he has the Wooded Foothills in hand.
Yeah, well, Wooded Foothills, fortunately for Daryl, he does play a basic forest. So he can go get that to be wasteland proof. That's exactly what he'll do. And cast Loam to get back 3 more. It's going to be Taiga, Wooded Foothills, Rishadan Port. So he's hoping to find a window where he can land this Tireless Tracker.
I get it. Land it.
Yeah.
Haha.
It's because he's playing lands.
You see, you play Tireless Tracker, and then you play a land.
Ah, but Max is going to get... Here we go for the very aggressive Dryad Arbor. He's got his win con going now.
Yeah, this game's really kicking into high gear.
All right. Max, no dredge, not wanting to do the dredge fight. He's going to draw, and what a draw for this. It's copy of Chalice of the Void.
It's a nice one.
That's huge. It was very, very wise to draw instead of dredge there. He'll attack with Dryad Arbor. And Max on Max's side, yeah, he will go ahead and make that Chalice of the Void for 2. And none too soon. Now, Daryl has some play here thanks to Tireless Tracker.
Right.
That's a 3-drop, so he'll play that. Wooded Foothills will net him 2 clue tokens.
And he'll be able to sacrifice one of these to get the Tireless Tracker out of 1 punishing fire range as well. Well, actually,
Yeah,
can't punishing fire anymore because of Chalice of the Void. That doesn't even matter. So Tietze needs to produce one of those Liliana of the Veils or a larger creature, which he does play for Knight of the Reliquary.
That'd be interesting to see if you start getting Knight of the Reliquary fighting against Tireless Tracker. In a weird sort of way, Tireless Tracker is going to get +1/+1 for every land in play for Daryl. Yeah, Max needs a kill spell now to clean this one up. He does play a fair amount of removal, but there's a chance it all costs 2. I guess he can cast Abrupt Decay still through a Chalice.
Yep, that one would come through.
Caracas for Max. 4 mana will give him maybe a Leyline? Yeah, it's going to be a hard cast Leyline of the Void. Daryl's graveyard's going to be gone. Well, actually, no, sorry. It's not Rest in Peace, is it?
Right.
So the future cards in the graveyard will be gone. And then Max Abrupt Decays away the Tracker.
It does mean Ayers will need to be able to produce 2 Croissant Grips to really get going with Life from the Loam.
Sure.
because he does not currently have a graveyard that's of much value.
Yeah, and it even looks like he drew one of them off that clue token. But he will need a second. Rishadan Import is the draw, or is the play for the turn. Yeah, he's got one Krosan Grip in hand. He'll pass back to Max. And now he's going to start porting things. He has, looks like three copies of Rishadan Import.
And even with 3 port activations, that will leave Tietze with access to 4 mana.
Yeah, it looks like he'll still be able to cast most of the important spells here. Looks like he's keeping Max off of double black. Chose both of Max's black sources. He has a Mox Diamond, but he can't cast Liliana of the Veil based on how Daryl's playing this.
Yeah, you would need another black source.
Yep. Now, Ryan, there's also the chance, right, that Daryl could just wait until Dark Depths. And if he can somehow get Wasteland Dark Depths, get that Karakas out of play, then he can just win with a 20/20 here.
Stranger things have happened. This makes it harder.
Yeah, Max Wasteland's away the Thespian stage. Daryl's hand, Krosan Grip. Couple more lands. He has at least one red card. A Punishing Fire. And it's a Punishing Fire, Loam, Krosan Grip, Taiga. So 2 cards that will get countered. A land and that K-Grip. With the second Krosan Grip, Daryl's got a lot of play, but he's going to have to find one of the other 3. And here is a Reclamation Sage from Max. He said, I'm going to destroy your clue, and Daryl says, okay, I'll crack it. And I suppose from Daryl's spot, even a Tireless Tracker is a very good draw.
It's one of very few things that he really can draw, but it would be very significant.
Yeah, I mean, stuff that was it. Gamble would be fine. Krosan Grip would be fine. Tireless Tracker would be fine. That might be it, though.
And when you say gamble would be fine, you mean exactly fine. That's not guaranteed to actually do anything. Card.
I mean, it's why we call it gamble, right?
It would be smart to not discard the good card.
Well, Daryl's gotten a bit of an assist from teammate Ayers-Musser-Soorani, the Esper Mage himself, playing Esper in Standard, a 2-0 winner over Jim Davis. Now gives the first match to teammates Dan Musser and Daryl Ayers.
Tietze looks significantly advantaged in this match here, though. Both up a game and with a commanding board presence here. And we see Ayers is conferring with Dan Musser, so very likely that game is on a more important turn. So those players are going to be conferring in the back here. Ayers back very much against the wall in this game. Again, this is a team event, so we'll find out exactly what's happening there. And for Ayers in this game, he either drew a spell that matters or he didn't. His outs are very slim. Yeah,
I mean, what's happening right now is there's some tension in the other match. Because Shaheen just won, if Dan is behind right now, their team's going to devote some of their resources to trying to win the modern match.
Very likely that Musser is in a closer game.
Yeah, and they're saying, well, if Musser loses, we don't care about this one. But there are still... pace of play still matters in this match. You see Daryl, they consult for a second, and Daryl's going to go back to his own game here.
And for as much as you are allowed to engage with your teammates, you do still have to play your match. Though playing against Chalice of the Void and Leyline of the Void, when you're playing lands, doesn't feel a lot like playing.
Yeah, so I guess the decision, right, is if Dan wins this game, this close game, then they don't need to care about the lands match.
Right.
Back over to Daryl. He's going to play the exploration he just drew. And interesting here, Ryan, was going to be how many lands he wants to play out. If he draws Tireless Tracker, he'll want them in his hand.
Yes.
But there's other draws that makes him want to have them in play. Say if he draws a Dark Depths, he could just start cranking off the ice counters.
Well, he does have a Dark Depths in hand. And not going for any ports on this turn here.
It's interesting. Has 3, going for none of them.
Maybe doing it.
Yeah, he's going to tap on attacks.
Sure,
he's
he
gonna take care of
can't
this Dryad Arbor.
take Tietze off a double black on this turn because he wants to save a little bit of life. Yeah, the Reclamation stage does change that. Makes combat matter a little bit more.
A draw from Max, no plays, says go. Another loam drawn for Daryl. That's not going to do anything. So Daryl taking 2 a turn right now. He's waiting for one of about 12 cards so that he can play again and hoping Max doesn't further extend the lead.
And the reason you don't see him deploy the Dark Depths in hand and start thawing away is Tietze already has a Caracas on the battlefield. He needs to make something else happen before that could possibly matter.
He is tapping down the Dryad Arbor to save life, though. It goes down to 10 on this attack. Back to Ayers. There's a gamble. So this is one of the live draws he was waiting for. Probably. So we can cast Gamble right now. Here's the question. What does he gamble for?
Tireless Tracker, right?
Croson Grip's fine, too.
If you gamble for Croson Grip, you have more bad outcomes with the discard, right?
Whoa.
Because you need both grips.
So Daryl, before gambling, it looks like he's going to go ahead and play the Dark Depths. He wants to make sure he doesn't discard that. I mean, I guess he could be going for something like Thespian Stage. That seems very aggressive. I do like the Tireless Tracker.
Crop Rotation pulled to the front of the library.
Oh, well. This is quite the aggressive play if this is what he's trying to do. So everything's now on this match. Dan Musser not able to get that one. Jason Imperiale with white-black tokens gets both sideboarded games, so now Legacy will decide this round. And his crop rotation, the one that's what he got?
Yes.
Reroll on 6. All right, they're randomly choosing which one to gamble. Just going to keep rolling 6s. We could do this forever.
Oh, no.
And Red Entomb turns out to not save the day for Daryl.
Sometimes you gamble and sometimes you lose.
And Daryl. All right, Max retains control of the board.
Yeah, frequently this deck is capitalizing on the fact that the card that you gamble for you just want to discard. Tietze has 2 permanents that make Life from the Loam basically irrelevant for Ayers.
Right.
And you see, you can't always gamble for what you want.
No, and that, so Croson Grip on end step, it looks like for Daryl, he's going to go ahead and get rid of that Chalice of that Leyline of the Void. But Chalice is still in play. Draw of Mox Diamond. I'm interested that he got rid of Leyline.
Yeah, he does have Punishing Fire in hand that could deal with the Reclamation stage.
I guess Max has his own Life from the Loam, so you really don't want to grip away the Chalice, because then Max starts doing mean things.
Yeah, then you could be in some trouble. Seeing as Leyline is not a symmetrical effect. It's only stopping Ayers.
Right, it's not Rest in Peace. And Daryl's life points chipping away here. Under Max's semi-lock at this point. It's got Daryl down to 6. Just keeps passing. Can Daryl, he needs to hit a draw again. And he's hit Thespian Stage.
So yeah, stage Dark Depths, but Tietze does still have that Caracas.
Well, okay, here's one. He could make a Dryad Arbor and then block the Reclamation Sage.
He has ports. He can tap Caracas and then Thespian Stage Dark Depths.
Wait, this is way scarier.
That's how that card works.
That's better than making a 1/1 Arbor to trade with Reclamation Sage.
I would argue yes.
Yeah, and see Daryl going to 3 here. Now he's not porting the Dryad Arbor. He wants enough mana, so he has just enough mana to use port to tap the Caracas. He can tap something else. Yeah, so Caracas tapped. We'll walk through it here. Thespian Stage copies Dark Depths.
I would like a 20/20, please.
Right. I mean, he becomes a copy of Dark Depths, which he keeps in play, but the copy has no ice counters, so he gets a 20/20. And that's going to be the game for Daryl Ayers.
And we're going to game 3, and these players are going to have to finish this one quickly.
So when Daryl set up that crop rotation, when he gambled for it, that's the play he was hoping for. Now, granted, he eventually drew it, so he gets it anyway.
And by getting crop rotation, in the event that you do discard it, then you still have more live draws of the stage there.
Wow. So now it's going to come down to a third game between Max Tietze and Daryl Ayers. Daryl knows about the sideboard of the Leyline of the Voids now. If he didn't have all his Krosan grips in, I bet he's going for more.
Yeah. So Tietze is... I imagine you want to mulligan more aggressively for Leyline of the Void in this situation. He is only playing 3 copies, not a full 4, which makes mulliganing for it somewhat tenuous. It does lower his odds. Yeah.
All right, so one more game to decide the match between these two teams, decide the round. Will it be Daryl Ayers with lands or Max Tietze with punishing Abzan? Over at StarCityGames.com, we have our Versus videos, which, of course, we have our series available on our main page. Now, we also have our Versus series, the 2-player playmats. These are the ones that you see during all these videos that the players battle with. They're now available for ordering. Ordering today over at StarCityGames.com/VS Playmats. And this is going to be a tough one. That clock on top is accurate. But one thing I know with especially a player like Daryl Ayers, I imagine he would not have as much success as he does with lands if he did not have the ability to speed up his play with this deck when needed.
Right. And the clock became less of a second opponent with the printing of Thespian Stage. You know, having access to that combo makes it so your wins are much less anemic.
Oh, he's got a Barbarian Ring in his list. He definitely doesn't need Thespian Stage.
Yeah, that one's quick.
That used to be the only way to win. Well, sometimes you play like one creature land.
Creeping Tar Pit was in vogue for a while.
Yeah, or like Raging Ravine or something like that.
Mishra's Factory, if we want to go a little further back.
Wasn't it like Nantuko Monastery? The one, the big, the green-white thing that you have to have Threshold. It was really bad.
Yeah, it becomes a 4/4.
Yeah, that seems great. That's how I want to win my games.
You can make green and white mana with Riftstone Portal in your graveyard.
Some lists still play Riftstone Portal. That thing's great.
It makes your Dark Depths tap for mana.
So now you see both Jim Davis and Shaheen Soorani are going to join the fight. Jim Davis, a player who knows his way around a legacy deck pretty well. It's going to be the hard thing with Daryl is Daryl's such a veteran lands pilot that, you know, it's hard to say how much he gains from getting more cooks in on this one.
I'm pretty sure Dayers alone is more valuable than Dayers with people talking at him. I'm going to throw that out there. You know, when you're this practiced with a deck like this,
people talking to you just is as negative.
They might take you out of the zone.
Yeah. So Max will be on the play for their deciding game 3. And in a lot of ways, we've seen Max kind of try to assemble those same lock pieces in the first 2 games. Whereas we might expect off the list for him to win with cards like Knight of the Reliquary, Scavenging Ooze, these attacking creatures. He's really played a lands-esque strategy.
Yep. His most powerful tools in the matchup are Chalice and Leyline of the Void.
Well, the player's going to try to finish a 3rd game here. And for Daryl, looks like his draw was the turn 1 exploration.
That's where you want to be.
Absolutely. There's a little bit of hesitation on Daryl's part. You see Rishadan Port in hand.
I see a crop rotation.
Okay, so it'll be Mox Diamond. Discarding Wooded Foothills. So this could be a big start. Mox Diamond Exploration, that's a lot of mana on the first turn of the game. Gamble, he's doing this with the crop rotation still in hand, or with the exploration still in hand. Gambles for life from the loam. I guess it's possible that's a crop rotation thing instead of the exploration.
Yeah, I think that might be what's going on.
Okay, that make a little more sense. Gambles for loam. We'll see what he discards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in hand. We're going to do this a couple times.
That die is weighted.
It's all 6s. This time it's not Red Entomb. He'll discard the Rishadan Port and just pass. Go back to Max's second turn. Daryl has pulled ahead on lands. Now getting his engine moving. Punishing Fire and Life from the Loam both in hand.
And this will be a game, unless Tietze is able to produce a Mox Diamond or two, where Ayers will be able to more effectively leverage that Rishadan Port when he gets it back on the battlefield. Something like a Wasteland as well.
Well, we've watched the first 2 games. Max has had the mana advantage the whole time. You know, we saw him turn 1 a Liliana and turn 2 a Liliana the second game. This is going to be the first time where Max is playing from behind on mana.
Yeah, he's had a lot more Mox Diamonds otherwise. It's like a Green Sun Zenith for 1 here.
Yeah, and that'll get hit Deathrite Shaman into play.
That's pretty strong against Life from the Loam.
It is, but I think Daryl has Punishing Fire to go with his Life from the Loam.
That's pretty strong against Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, and there's a Grove with Burn Willows in play, so kind of like, if that's what's going on, I like everything that's happening here. He will cast Loam. Maybe not then, getting two lands.
Well, this leaves him with no lands in his graveyard, so even if he has the Punishing Fire, he can sit around on this.
Yeah, I mean, Max could get rid of the Loam.
It's certainly true.
And he'll have to do it before Daryl dredges it. I guess the worry would be if Daryl has a Tranquil Thicket, then Max just gets really blown out here. Right, if he targets that Loam, and in response, Daryl fetches, cycles Tranquil Thicket, dredges the Loam. I mean, Max loses his turn. Daryl's just off to the races then.
Right.
And he will grab the Life from the Loam out of the graveyard. That's exiled. Daryl goes to 18. Little interested to see Daryl let that one go so early, but we'll see what he's up to. Certainly that was no accident.
Right.
Max will cycle Baron more. Play a Wasteland. So no dredge here from Ayers. You see he draws Krosan Grip. He's gotten blown out by these Chalice for 2s. Not this time. Now he will punish down the Deathrite Shaman. Pass the turn. Back over to Max. He'll play Reclamation Sage. Going to try to hit that Mox Diamond of Daryl's. And Daryl's buying back Punishing Fire. He'll just go to work. But the clock is going to be the big constraint here for Daryl Ayers. Max Tietze missed his land drop. So he'll play stage, say go. Daryl will just like to set up the combo.
Daryl does have Crop Rotation already in his hand. We'll
So-
see if Tietze taps the Wasteland.
Yeah, if he does, he actually dies here. Swing, Daryl down to 16. Max is going to make a 2-mana play, but he's not getting rid of that Wasteland, not yet. Chalice for the Void on 1. Daryl might respond with a Crop Rotation. We'll see. It's his last chance to do so. Or I guess he's got Krosan Grip in his hand. He could just blow it up.
Yep, that one's nice too.
And that's what he'll do. Tracks his fetch land. Down 1 minute remaining. Gonna Krosan Grip away the Chalice. Let's see, does he has 2 Crop Rotations in his hand. Does he use them yet? No, he does not. Draw is a gamble. And he'll go ahead and cast it. So Crop Rotation, Punishing Fire in Daryl's hand.
This is a spot, I don't believe that Ayers has another land in his hand at this point in time, so he would very much prefer not to discard the Loam here.
Third card in, he's going to discard a secondary Krosan Grip. That seems just fine for him. So he'll cast Loam, getting back Wooded Foothills. He'll play Wooded Foothills.
And that means he'll have a green source for crop rotation.
Absolutely. Back to Max. Swings for 2, putting Darrell to 13. Almost out of time here.
If Ayers is able to produce enough mana sources, he can use the port to port down the wasteland and then set up crop rotation Thespian stage.
We are in turn, so we're going to get a confirmation just of what the turn number is here. If this is an upkeep fetch or an end step fetch, that looks like end step, so this means Darrell is turn 1. He's going to tap down with the green mana source that we should import. And in response, it'll be Dark Confidant from Max. Players are getting pretty fast here, so we're going to try to keep up with where they are and turn number here. We've determined Darrell's turn here is going to be turn number 1. So we'll have turns 1, 3, and 5. Max will have turns 2 and 4. Now, Ryan, it looks to me like Darrell's kind of playing for the win here, and Max is playing for a draw.
That's about what I'm seeing here as well. In theory, if Tietze is able to keep this Reclamation stage and Dark Confidant around, you can convert a win, but we already know that Ayers has Punishing Fire.
Bazooka Bog takes care of Max's graveyard. So turn 2 is Max's. He draws an extra card off Confidant and a card for the turn. It's unclear to me, though, what Darrell... So his plan is to win on turn 5. So end step of turn 4, make it 20-20, swing on turn 5. But there's a problem that Max is at 21 now.
He has Punishing Fire.
Okay.
Also, Dark Confidant could chip in for those last points of damage as well.
Dark Confidant could help him out.
Right. Didn't hear it reveal the fetch land. I suppose if Tietze cracks it, that changes things. But Ayers looks to have as many resources as he needs. That Bog will be untapped on the following turn. Unless Tietze is able to do something else, he'll have access to Port, Crop Rotation, Thespian stage.
So this attack puts Darrell down to 9. But as this is turn 2, Max only gets 1 more attack, so I don't know that he has 9 points of damage that he can throw out.
Right.
Land 4 from Max, he will just pass. Now we have to look at what Darrell wants to play. He's going to cast Crop Rotation, sacrificing Bazooka Bog. Ryan, do you think we're going to see a Wasteland, him getting Wasteland here, and maybe go for a win?
I suppose he has enough mana to do that already, huh?
I guess there's no Dark Depths in play, but he's got a second.
Well, he has second rotation.
Yeah, he could get Wasteland here, waste the Wasteland, so we see right now Wasteland targeting Thespian stage, and now Darrell knows that he's got a play here. He's going to use Crop Rotation again, floating a mana. So first, he sacrifices.
Rewind it a little bit for clarification.
Yeah. Okay. So right now, that second Crop Rotation is going to go get one of the combo pieces. It's going to be Dark Depths. Now he's going to use Thespian Stage to copy Dark Depths. This is all with the Wasteland trigger on the stack. It's going to get a 20-20, lose both the lands. The Wasteland trigger has no targets. Now Darrell resolves the second Crop Rotation, or the first one he cast.
Right. Ayers is going to take some time to think about ways he could possibly lose this game. It's really not anything in Tietze's deck.
The cards that he would lose to, he can't play around.
Right.
He'll get Thespian Stage. Diabolic Edict would get him, but you can't beat that.
Right.
So he has the 20-20, and we know he has the Grove of the Burn Willows or the Punishing Fire in hand. A lot of cards in Max's hand, but do any of them do anything?
Merit Lage fills the casting cost requirement for Abrupt Decay, but is, of course, indestructible.
Darrell draws as his turn 3, swings for 20. Max goes to 1, and Darrell's going to show the Punishing Fire. And in turns on turn 3, Darrell Ayers with lands is going to carry his team to the win. It is Soorani, Musser, and Ayers winning the round, going to 6-1.
2020s are pretty good.
It's, a very close fight between the two of them. Max doing kind of his best impression of a lands deck in a lot of those games.